under investigation, and we are still in the early stages, but we thought it was important to show our community exactly what happened. On behalf of the entire Harris County Sheriff's Office, I want to offer sincere condolences to Mr. Garcia's family and friends. His death is a tragedy. I also want to take a moment to call upon all our leaders at every level to continue to invest in mental health services that continue to be desperately needed here and across our nation. Too often, peace officers are finding themselves placed in life or death situations involving people experiencing a mental health crisis. Our agency has invested heavily in training and resources for our deputies, who receive 40 hours of training on how to deal with these situations. We have also equipped more than 150 deputies with iPads that connect them with mental health professionals to help them peacefully resolve situations in the field when given the chance. But our society must do more to prevent these tragedies. Finally, I want to acknowledge the hard work of our Harris County Sheriff's Office deputies. These situations are traumatic for everyone involved. I applaud our deputies who responded to this particular scene, prepared to administer first aid in a manner that goes far beyond the standard training. They are committed to preserving life, and their efforts are greatly appreciated. Moving forward, we will continue with our investigations. We will be thorough, and we will be fair. Everyone involved deserves as much. Thank you. Again, we played all the video that we have from the scene. It's nothing was redacted, so you saw it from beginning, different angles of what happened out there. So, any questions?
How many different videos was that together?
About 4, right? Approximately 4.
At one point, we hear one of the other deputies say, "Well, there's the taser right there." Then we saw still. It looked like it was deployed, but did the darts ever actually make contact with Mr. Garcia?
We've tried to ascertain that. A lot of that will depend on the autopsy itself, but so far that's been inconclusive. We don't know if if one of the prongs actually penetrated. If you saw, it happened very quickly. He was moving, he was retreating when he set off the taser, so it could have just barely grazed him or didn't penetrate or whatever. And so we don't know exactly if it attached to him or not. We saw it on the ground as part of the scene investigation after it had been deployed.
So looking at all this video, is there anything your deputy could have done differently?
Well, again, I want to just, as I've said consistently in our statement here, is I want to be very careful not to let anyone feel that we've already gotten to all our conclusions. You know, we wanted to release the video. This is where we're at, and it's still an investigation in progress. I will say that all our deputies, just about, are now trained with crisis intervention training. I know there's been a lot of discussion about different units and all that. We're very fortunate here. And frankly, thanks to this administration and our team when I took office in 2017, that we've elevated mental health training and different alternatives to address crisis situations up there with anybody in the nation in terms of our core program, award-winning core program that's been analyzed. We have CERT that pairs a mental health professional with a deputy. We have crisis intervention training, more training than we've ever had in the history. So everyone has some level of training to address these type of situations. But as you saw from the video, you know, I think the deputy had great communication and prior to him arriving, talking to the spouse outside, collecting some information, and even when he advanced on the house, as soon as there wasn't even an opportunity to establish communication to determine what had been going on. They had dealt with him successfully in the past. His hopes were to try to de-escalate it, talk to him, see what was going on. But as soon as Mr. Marcelo opened the door, as we highlighted there, he was armed with a knife, and then the rest, the deputy was retreating basically on his heels, trying to create separation. And so, you know, we're going to let just the investigation conclude because it's still ongoing. So there's a lot of things I'd like to say about it, but it would be fair to all involved just to let the investigation finish, and then we could see if all policies were followed and what have you.
The attorney for the family says they were not given the opportunity to see this video prior to this moment. Why is that?
I contacted the family yesterday to try to make that opportunity available to them or to have conversation with them. I received no answer after multiple attempts. And then I did call again earlier today. And so one of our team members did speak to the attorney almost simultaneous as I was talking to the spouse and the mother. I offered condolences on their loss. We know this is very tragic and difficult for everyone, especially the children. But you know, they had asked or called upon through other platforms of wanting the tape release, so they were thankful that we were releasing it.
But in
So
terms of getting, the lawyer says they would have appreciated to have seen it beforehand, and that they
we
made
tried
contact
calling.
with you.
We tried calling
And the
yesterday.
lawyer said she did speak with someone with your office, and that was not offered to them.
I don't know who they spoke to. They didn't speak to me. I tried calling yesterday multiple times and received no answer to try to set something up with them.
Sheriff, given that that it was known that it was going to be a mental health crisis related call, should the deputy have arrived alone without the help of the second officer?
There's you know, when we get a call for service, we don't always have all the information at hand. This particular deputy had responded to this particular house. As Chief Lee mentioned, this house was known to them. They had had previous interactions with Mr. Garcia. Most had been de-escalated and were completely successful. So we have to respond when we're called upon because we simply don't know what's going on. An individual in crisis or not could potentially hurt someone else. Different dynamics are happening. There's children involved there. We've had a lot of incidents of domestic situations that can become deadly. So we want to get there and ascertain, and then we can assess what resource may be needed at that point. But there simply wasn't enough time to get someone else there, additional backup to get there. And so we think he responded as he was supposed to.
Sheriff, would you consider staffing another mental health unit at that particular time, like later hours?
We'd love more. Absolutely. We've said before, and that we could absolutely use a lot. It's definitely a growing need for quite a while. We've requested to grow those units before, but we've also leveraged technology. Like I said, with our core program, where over 100 deputies are now trained with an iPad where they can connect to a clinician or a mental health professional pretty much in real time. So we would love to be able to grow that. But we've had our CERT teams in place now for many years, right, Chief? Right. Yeah. And so we would like to have more teams out there available.
Sheriff, in the video, the deputy mentioned possibly searching him for additional weapons. Is there anything else found?
To my knowledge, nothing else was found beyond the knife, right at the scene. No other weapons were found other than the knife. So just for precaution, because we don't know had he had an additional knife or another weapon, he hadn't been searched yet at all. And so I think that's what they were inquiring about.
Would you consider showing body cam footage in this similar fashion for future shooting?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, and I'll just reiterate, we're in the process as we speak right now of just refining our release policy so that we could make sure that we're being balanced both in preserving the integrity of a case and at the same time making sure that we're being transparent with our community when there's an important public safety issue, in the middle of it. And so, we'll use this obviously as a model for us to go forward, but, we're still tweaking what our policy will look like and make sure that ideally if we could make sure there's some consistency with other regional agencies here so that there's not different policies. We would like to do that, but our goal is to make sure we're being transparent and to come up with maybe a timeline, a reasonable timeline that's quick, but at the same time balances the need that, like I mentioned, there's a number of investigations still going on. And we also want to make sure that those other investigations have opportunities to kind of bake themselves a little and get some of that information out.
Sheriff, on the note of public safety, the verdict for the children trial just reached. Can you talk about the plan for any possible reaction tonight?
Yeah, well, I believe the verdict will soon be out. And so the main thing is that we're hoping and praying for peace for everyone involved. We know that this has been a very consequential case, with tremendous impact. So our main thing is we haven't had any reports of any demonstrations in unincorporated Harris County at this time, but we know these situations can be fluid, so we ask for peace. At the same time, we are prepared, working with all different partners to be able to escalate our deployments as we need to make sure that we respect the integrity and opportunity for people to peacefully demonstrate their First Amendment rights to assemble, to protest, and at the same time making sure that we're protecting our community and our personnel as well. So we're prepared. We game plan for different things throughout the years. We've been in contact with all our local law enforcement partners to be prepared.
And Sheriff, many people view this trial as potentially a tidal wave about, policing in general. What have you and your office learned about, how to operate and what the public should trust in you or not after this year?
Yeah, well, we're doing a lot of things. A lot of them are still unfolding as we speak. We're looking to do a de-escalation training that we've been approved of, that we feel is kind of best in class. So we're going to start launching that this calendar year. We've also done ICAT training, which actually helps in the responses when an individual is armed and undergoing some type of crisis. We'd like to get more CERT teams out there for the mental health response as well as we're going over all our use of force policies to make sure that we highlight and reinforce things like the preventing chokeholds, things like that, which we're already in policy, but we want to make sure that we strengthen that and also have the proper culture behind it. Because you could have the best written policies in the world, but if you're not validating them with the culture and expectations, then they're all for naught. I believe in Minneapolis, it had a duty to intervene policy, and it still didn't seem to work. And so we're looking through all those policies, taser usage, all those things to make sure that they're consistent with 21st century policing practices.